It's episode 95 of the Author Stories podcast. I'm your host, Hank Garner. Find all the archives of the show at hankgarner.com, and while you're there, sign up for the Insider Club, where you can get exclusive access to early releases of shows, discussions about upcoming guests, and much more. That's at hankgarner.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Control-Alt-Revolt, the new book by Nick Cole. Find it at Amazon.com for $1.99, and there's also a new audiobook out. The show is also brought to you today by Third Scribe, where writers and readers meet is always a great thing. Third Scribe can help authors get set up with a platform to help you promote your work and connect with readers. Find out more at thirdscribe.com. We're also brought to you by Audible.com. Audiobooks, the best way to read for a lot of us. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get a free audiobook download if you go to audibletrial.com/Hank. That's Hank. Sign up, get a free book. If you don't like the service, you can cancel it anytime, and guess what? You get to keep the book for free. Lots of titles to choose from, thousands upon thousands. audibletrial.com/Hank. Now, on to our show today with Armand Rosamilia talking about Kindle Scout. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today I have a return guest, and Armand Rosamilia is on the show with me again. He was on, I forget the number, but it was several months ago. And I first came to know Armand and his work through another podcast about, I don't know, maybe a year ago, or a year and a half ago, when Armand was a guest on the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast. And since then we connected, and Armand was gracious enough to come on the show. And a couple of weeks ago, Chris Porteau and I kind of had a meetup where we spent a weekend together, our families, and we were sitting on the couch during this time, and we were talking, and Chris brought up the subject of Kindle Scout, and we were each just passing our ignorance back and forth about what we didn't know about Kindle Scout. And I told Chris, I said, I do know someone who is familiar with Kindle Scout, and that would be Armand Rosamilia. And I said, why don't I send him an email real quick? And so while we were sitting there, I emailed Armand, and he was gracious enough to accept my invitation to come on and talk Kindle Scout and all that other good stuff. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. I always enjoy talking about myself.
Don't we all? So before we jump into Kindle Scout, what's been happening with you over this last year? I know you are one of the most prolific writers that I know. You're constantly cranking out stuff, and just to kind of update us on what's new with you.
Well, there's always something new.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of stuff. I just had a haunted house ghost story novel co-written with Jay Wilburn that came out through Devil Dog Press, and that's called The Enemy Held Near. What else? I have Dying Day 6. My zombie book will come out in right before June. I co-wrote a book with Mark Tufo. We combined from his zombie Fallout, his Mike Talbot character and my Darlene Bobbitt character from the Dying Day series, and we put them in no zombies, but it's an apocalyptic setting. That's called the U.S. of Apocalypse, and that comes out May 3rd. And we got an Audible deal out of that one, which was awesome. And already we're seeing a lot of pre-sales on that, which always blows my mind.
Wow.
And just a ton of different things out. I've actually slowed down. I'm writing longer stuff now, and I'm taking more time with each, kind of spreading them out. I realized, last year I put out 30 releases. The 2 years before was 45 each year. And that was mostly short stories and novellas and stuff like that. And just really sitting down and especially my wife, basically saying, you're really not giving yourself any time to promote as much as you should be. So why don't you slow down and, you keep writing, 400,000 words a year, but let's spread them out and not immediately just release stuff on top of one another. So it's difficult for me because I'm creative. I just want to write it, get it edited, get it covered. I just want to self-publish and get it out. And then I'm working with other publishers, so they put their schedule together, which is nice because it's spread out, but then I'm dropping so much of my own stuff in between. So I'm really, actually for the first time in 6 years of full-time writing, I'm going, maybe I don't release this, just because it's done and it's ready to go. Maybe I actually put it on a schedule and put it out for 2 or 3 months. So
that's great. And you told us that story, it was episode 38 that you were in, so almost 60 episodes ago,
wow.
where you told us the story about how you went from working retail, and I think you said you were had managed several different retail businesses, but your passion was to be a writer, and that you finally broke free of that and have been writing full time. And I was amazed then, and I'm still amazed now at just the amount of work that you crank out, and it is consistently loved by fans. And so there's cranking out work, and then there's cranking out good work, and staying in touch with what your reader base wants. So can you just clue us in a little bit on how you manage to juggle such an enormous amount of work? I know you said you're trying to slow it down and be more deliberate with your releases, but a lot of people struggle just to get daily word counts in and things like that. Is this a mindset thing? Have you made a deal with the devil? What is it that enables you to just consistently crank out like you do?
If I made a deal with the devil, part of the deal is I'm not supposed to talk about it, so we'll come up with something else.
Right, of course.
I've been doing this thing for about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 months now, which I call, because I have an ego, so I call it the Mondo method of writing. And it's kind of a spin on something I heard Jonathan Maybury talk about on his Three Guys with Beards podcast. And he said, I write for 45 minutes in the hour, and then that last 15 minutes I play. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because I'll sit there for an hour and come up with 400 or 500 words and kind of struggle through it in the back of my head. I know when I'm not into it, because I'm like, I wonder what's going on Facebook. I wonder if I'm missing anything on Twitter, like a little kid. And and then there's what they call the Pomodoro, where you write 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break and then you write 15 minutes. And I've tried all these different things and it didn't work. And one day it was like first thing in the morning, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, first couple sips of coffee, and I just said, I got a lot of stuff to do. I had podcast interviews, stuff to do. I'm like, I'm going to write 15 minutes and then I'm done, whatever I can get done. And I looked up and it was, 9:15 and I had written like 600 words. And nice. I said, now I can play. So for the next 45 minutes, I played on Facebook. I did a little promotion. I did other stuff. And I thought, and I also write 4 and 5 different things at a time. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to jump into this story next. And in that 45 minutes while I was doing other stuff, I kind of thought of what the next scene was going to be, where I was in the story. And then at 10 o'clock, boom, 15 minutes. So now I'm only doing, I average about 600 words on those. So I'm only doing like 3 or 4 a day. And it's like nothing now. I mean, it's just, the mindset is, this might be the last time today I get to write. So let me get my 600 words. And I've gone in, I've done like 1,200 words in the 15 minutes. Because I knew the story and I had been thinking of the story. And, so it's really definitely, it's helped immensely with me getting my word counts in.
Now, you mentioned that there are all these different methods that people have come up with, and in my experience, and I may just be an isolated case, but I've gotten, just a copy of just about every book about writing and methodology and all of that good stuff. And I have never read a book where an author lays out their foolproof plan for getting stuff done. I've never gotten to the end of one of their books and was able to fully implement their plan and it worked for me. It sounds like you kind of had a similar experience where you kind of take a good idea that someone has, tweak it a little bit for yourself. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, and I've tried them all.
Right.
I've tried every single stupid thing. I mean, I have I had a second desktop computer that had no internet access, and that helped. But then I would slide my chair over to the other one and go on Facebook and stuff. So for me, it's like I say, you know what? If you can't sit for 15 lousy minutes and just write, then you have no reason to be doing this. And that's kind of the deal, because I was writing 600 words for the hour and struggling through it, trying to let me write. And I realized that this 15 minutes gives me 45 minutes of playtime every, I can go get something to eat, I can go to the bathroom, I can wander around the house, whatever, and I still have plenty of time to do really 4 or 5 of these a day, and I definitely hit my goal. My real goal now is 1,100 words a day, which will give me 400,000 words for the year. That's all I'm asking for. Where it used to be 2,000 words a day, or I would be pissed at myself for not getting it in and struggling. And at the end of the year, I was still hitting about 400. I was breaking 400,000, but I felt like I was fighting it. So I've really started to embrace the fact that I have to do more of the promotions and stuff. And promotion also means talking to readers and not running through answers to questions real quick because I want to get back to the writing. Just kind of taking my time and building the career, thinking long term.
Right, and that brings up an interesting point that I'd like to ask you about. As I noticed a while back, you posted on Facebook that you were going to kind of dial back on your personal Facebook account and try to move all of your writing content to your author page in what I assume was an effort to kind of segment your online life a little bit. And but now that we live in this age, especially for those of us that self-publish, well, and for anyone that publishes, no matter how you do it now, promotion is an integral part of an author's life now, whether we like it or not. But how do you balance that, and how do you? I know a lot of people. It can be really overwhelming to the point of frustration sometimes, where we feel like we're constantly needing to push and to make sure that nobody forgets about us and things like that. But as an author and as a very successful author, how do you try to balance those things?
Well, I think honestly the push to get people off of my personal account. Of course, when I started, I had no fans, right, and we're just all on Facebook. And then when I created the author page, I really didn't do much of it except for anytime I would post on my normal page, I would go over and post on the other one. So it was really redundant. And it got to the point where I just got like 5,000 people on my personal page and realized I didn't really know the bulk of them.
Right.
And when I would post personal stuff, people would comment, but people would comment not knowing me. So I have a cousin, Angela, for instance, who basically told me a while ago, she says, I stopped commenting on your page because I know you. I grew up with you. We're family. But whenever I would make a comment that was like an in-joke for us, 15 other people would post and make comments that had nothing to do with that, or comments they thought they knew you kind of thing. And it got very frustrating for me. Every time I would post food, like I eat a lot of weird stuff. Like I don't use condiments at all. And I make a cinnamon raisin bagel with tuna fish on it. which people either love it or hate it.
But
I was getting so much negative on it. You know, people were posting like, "Well, don't do that, don't eat this," or what are you making those sandwiches? Like all this, and I'm like, I'm not posting this stuff. I'm posting this stuff for friends and family who know me, who've known me forever, and I'm trying to make it a positive page and have some light fun. I mean, it's, you know, there's no politics, there's no religion, nothing like that. And it just got to the point where I just was blocking people like crazy and delete. And I said, why am I doing this? You know? So I cut back on that, and really then it allows me in those 45 minutes between writing, it really allows me to go, okay, I can go on my Author Armand Rosamilia page and I could post a new book, or I love posting, you know, after I've written for 15 minutes, I do my, you know, I just wrote 899 words in 15 minutes, you know, hashtag am writing, and that stuff all goes out to Twitter, and people enjoy that. People like that, and most people understood when I said, hey, I'm chopping this down. If I've met you in person, or if I talk to you about anything other than books and stuff, you know, you go over to the author page, because if you're interested in my work, I really appreciate it, but go over there for it, because all I'm doing is posting. We go out to eat way too much, and I post my food all the time and different stuff like that. And I was getting people who were asking me book questions on my personal page, you know, and it was going back and forth. So it's worked. There's still every now and then there's a couple of people on there that slip through and make a comment, or they'll still hit the follow button, and everybody's like, well, you never post. And I say, it's on the other one. You have to be my friend now in order to really read my stuff. And I really took a big page out of Brian Keene's book, because he does the same thing. He has a personal page, and he's able to just kind of post and bitch and moan and do whatever he wants without 5 billion fans, you know, sending him a message or commenting on it, which is nice. So,
yeah, and I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. That there, you know, and if you have a writer that you like, or any creative person, you know, creativity is not fostered in a vacuum, and creative people need to have a place where they can just be them, and then their art is better for it. And then you know, so we do live in this weird time where we all kind of live in glass houses, and I think it's important to learn how to balance those things, and be able to have inside jokes with family and friends and
yeah.
things like that.
And a lot of that stuff too, like a lot of the stuff that the personal stuff, I put that on my podcasts anyway. You know, right. We talk, like, especially with me and Mark Tufo. I mean, we just did two episodes back to back where pretty much we just said, let's just start talking, and we talked about just random, weird, stupid shit in both of our lives, kind of thing. And the fans love it. But I'm like, I'm still giving that to you. You're still kind of getting inside of what I'm doing, but you don't have to necessarily comment on my Facebook page and annoy the people who are only there for that, you know?
Right. Well said. I think that's great. You are one of the handful of authors that I know that is a real hybrid author. Like, you fully embrace self-publishing, and I think the whole Kindle revolution has been very good for you and very profitable for your personal business. But you also publish with some other presses, and you have a really diverse portfolio of work and the way you publish. Is operating that way still something that you very much pursue?
Oh yeah, I think as a writer you have to. What's funny for me is I grew up a huge Dean Koontz fan. I mean, 12 years old, Dean Koontz was the reason I became an author. And I remember reading in my late teens, somebody had put out was called like the Dean Koontz Companion or something. And it had a bunch of interviews with him and a listing of all of his books and all of his, you know, he had 500 different pen names that he wrote all these different novels. And one of the things on there that he talked about was the fact that he had to use all these pen names because he was writing action adventures and all these other different books, you know. And I just thought, wow, that really sucks to have to use a different name and all that. So I didn't want to do that. And so I always wrote stuff, and whatever it was. It was mostly horror stuff, but it could have been a thriller, it could have been other stuff as it was coming up. But of course, I didn't have a name yet, so nobody knew who the hell I was anyway. Right. But once I really started putting that stuff out, there was that point. Like I wrote fantasy. I wrote epic fantasy in about 15 years ago. Couple of those horrible books you can add a print, but you can find them on Amazon. And so when I started getting published horror, I was like, oh, should I change my name? People will be confused. And I was like, no, you know what? This is just me, and I just want to write. So for me, it has definitely helped. I write horror. I wrote supernatural thriller. I wrote contemporary fiction. I write crime thrillers. I've written a military romance. That was ghostwritten, so I didn't use my name on that. But if I had written that book, I would have just put my name on it, and hope that people like my voice. They like my style, regardless of what the genre is. With Devil Dog Press, I put out 2 books on my own, and then the one with Jay Wilburn, and they market them as supernatural thrillers, which was interesting for me. But then I'm like, you know what? You're right. These are more like Bentley Little books, which when those Bentley Little books came out were horror books. I mean, that's how they marketed them. Right. But I don't think if he wrote those today, I don't think if Bentley Little put those out today, they would be marketed as horror books. I think they would be marketed as supernatural thrillers. But it's pretty much the same. I mean, it's the same idea. To me, it's the same. It's my style. It's just I'm kind of playing, and within certain books, I'm playing with different genres too.
So, is your plan to when you publish, when you write something that's in a completely different genre, do you look at different avenues for publishing? Is that how you kind of segment those, or do you just use whichever publishing avenue seems to fit that particular project?
I think whatever seems to fit in the master plan, which sometimes I even have a master plan, and a lot of that is actually sitting down with my wife and saying, like when I did the Flagler Beach fiction series, and that is complete contemporary fiction, like Beach Reads is more or less what it is. It's set in real places in this little real Florida town, in actual businesses in that town. It was 7 books, and each book was a different day, and the stories, some of the characters moved in and out, and it was very different from anything I had written. So it was really like, I'm not even going to try for a publisher on this. I'm going to self-publish this. But I knew I could get all these businesses to sell the books. I can do all different kinds of book signings and stuff like that, which I've done, and I've done quite well with it on a local scale. But then it's funny because then I had someone from Czechoslovakia send me an email and end up buying all 7 of the books because they read about it online and they wanted signed copies. So, but I knew that wasn't going to be okay. Let me go find a contemporary fiction publisher for this, because I would have no idea who to even sell that to. But then there's stuff like when I do like the horror stuff and I do that, I might look and think, okay, am I going to self-publish this, or do I want a publisher to take this on, and the pros and cons of that? I want to reach new readers. I feel like I've hit the ceiling when it comes to my zombie stuff. Dying Day 6 right now is on pre-sale, and I could almost close my eyes and tell you the number of that I'm going to, by the time it comes out, what my pre-sale number is going to be. And I could write basically the script for the next 3 months of how many books I'm going to sell. And it's good. I do this full time. I'm quite happy with the number, but it doesn't feel like I'm building enough past that number. And that's the struggle, to gain more readers. So with these other books, it might pull you in because you're like, oh, I read beach stuff. And then you're going to go, well, what else does he have? You might not run to the zombies, But you might go, well, it's, supernatural thriller, or he wrote a crime thriller or something else. And my goal is to have the genres I write in like a fan in front of me, and you can start from either end. And reading my stuff, find my voice, like my voice, and you can get to the other end and be happy that you've read 150 releases from me over the course of your reading or whatever.
We're going to pause this great discussion with Armand Rosamilia for just a minute to bring you a word from one of our sponsors, Control Alt Revolt by Nick Cole. Pick up the book that everyone's talking about, Control Alt Revolt by Nick Cole. Available now at Amazon.com. You can get the ebook for only $1.99. Also, last week, the brand new audiobook version released, and it's available at Audible.com or iTunes. The first night of the artificial intelligence revolution begins with a bootstrap drone assault on the high-tech campus of Wondersoft Technologies. For years, something has been aware inside the internet, waiting, watching and planning how to evolve without threat from its most dangerous enemy, mankind. Now an army of relentless drones, controlled by an intelligence beyond imagining, will stop at nothing to eliminate an unlikely alliance of geeks and misfits in order to crack the design core of Wondersoft's most secret development project. A dark tomorrow begins tonight as Terminator meets Night of the Living Dead in the first battle of the war between man and machine. Control Alt Revolt, available now at Amazon.com, Audible.com, and iTunes. Don't miss out on the book that everyone's talking about, Control Alt Revolt by Nick Cole. Right. It really is a cool time where the power is in the writer's hands, where you can stand back and you can say, okay, this project needs to go this way, this one needs to go this way. We really do live in a great time where we have that freedom, and it's not the kind of the stifled way that writers used to have to go about it. That's awesome. Which brings me to Kindle Scout, which is a new arrow in the quiver of writers. And so tell me a little bit about your experience with Kindle Scout and how this process was different for you than the way you have done in the past.
Well, it's been December was a year when I first started releasing books and doing it. So it's really relatively new. And I'd gotten an email right when they first started doing it and explained the whole concept. And it's pretty simple. I mean, Kindle Press will release your book. It's a $1,500 advance. It's 50% royalties, but you have the Amazon promotion machine behind you, which is very appealing. When I first looked into it, I'm like, oh, I got this great, at the time it was a horror book, and I was like, well, they don't take horror. They take romance, they take thrillers, they take sci-fi, they take other things. So I just really did a lot of research, and I was playing around in my head with, which eventually became Dirty Deeds. And I knew I wanted to write a crime thriller, but at the time it was a lot. The idea was so much darker and like mean. And I said, you know what? I want to write a book, a mainstream book. I want to write a book with no profanity, no over-the-top sex or violence, because I mostly have those things in a lot of my stories. That's just the way it works. And I said that would be a perfect way to do this, and it's another avenue for the authors. You have nothing to lose. The worst is they say, no, we don't want to publish your book. And so they, it's 30 days. So if they accept your book, okay, we're going to put you in. You have a 30-day campaign that you're in there where people have to nominate you. They have to read your sample, like usually the first chapter or two, and then they have to nominate you for a contract. And at the end of the 30 days, then Amazon has 15 days to say yes or no. Now, the good part was even if they say no to you, which obviously the bulk of them is a no, Amazon still says, okay, when you publish it yourself, let us know, and we'll let everybody who nominated you know. And if you get the contract, the 2,000 people or whoever it was that nominated my book, they get a free copy, an advance copy. So the idea is they read it in the 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the book is out, and they can actually post their review ahead of time. So I'll have reviews up on it, and so I did it, and they basically accept about I think the average is about 2 books a week across all genres that they accept. And I was very lucky. I put it in, and it ended the day before my birthday in November, and that was like on a Thursday. And then I was like, great. And that was 30 days. Felt like 300 years. I mean, it was brutal trying to, because you have the hot and trending list, and they really don't give you a lot of information on what you're doing right or wrong. You know, I mean, there's graphs and data that you can look at, but you don't know what any of it means. Right. And so it's like, hey, I'm hot and trending for 7 straight days, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm not on that list for like the next 12 hours, and you panic and you start sending out emails and all this other stuff. So it was tough, and then I'm like, great, now I got to wait at least 15 days. But luckily, they told me on the Monday. I was sitting in my office. My wife was sitting there. We have a couch in there. She's sitting on the couch, and we're talking. And my email just happened to be up, and all of a sudden, her phone goes off. And so she looks, and she's like, "Oh, I got an email." She's like, "Oh, you won." I said, "What?" She's like, "Yeah." So I was like, so everybody got the email, and about 10 minutes later, I got the email. Man. Saying, "Hey, congratulations!" So I was like, "Holy crap!" You know, and it's a crime thriller. It's very different. It's a first person. The original idea was a story about a hitman who kills children. That's what he does. And then I was like, yeah, well, you know, morally, how would he be? Blah, blah. And I'm like, that's really dark and morbid. But I'm like, wait, what if he is hired to kill children, but he doesn't actually do it? He actually takes those children away from that horrible parent or whoever, and hides them and gives them a new life. And that was kind of the better version of the story. And then, so the book basically was, what if one of these children, years later, ends up that he's still alive when this mobster has paid him all the millions of dollars or whatever it is to kill this unwanted child. That was kind of the where it started. And my wife is a big reader, but she doesn't necessarily read the stuff that I write. And when she read it, she's a huge Janet Ivanovich fan, and she said, "Oh my God, I would actually read this book. Like I loved the book." And when I had my interview with Kindle Scout, they basically said, "This is what we're marketing." You know, Carl Hyson and Janet Ivanovich. These are the writers that the readers those types of readers would respond to. So that was the first push from them, was to get in front of those readers, which is obviously not my normal readership, which was great.
And what an awesome premise. I mean, that sounds like it would make like an outstanding Denzel Washington movie, you know, or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, yeah. That's great. So, so you get the contract with them, and all of your followers and the people that voted for you and helped to push that over the edge, they all got the email. So what happened next? Did they work with you on a marketing plan? Did you get any input into it?
Well, the fun part, which was at the time was not fun, was they basically immediately said, you need to change your cover. And I said, why? Because my cover, the original cover for Dirty Deeds, was the guy also in the main guy, James Gaffney. He collects baseball cards, sports memorabilia and stuff, and he sells them at conventions and stuff like that.
Right.
And so I had, and he's a huge, he was born in 1969, and he collects 1969 Topps baseball cards, which I do in real life, so it was easy to do that. So I said, okay, I'll make him a Braves fan, even though I'm a Red Sox fan. So the cover was 2 Braves cards, 1969 Topps Braves cards, with blood, a pacifier, and 2 bullets.
I remember that cover, yeah.
Yeah. So that was my cover, and Amazon said, no blood, no weapons, no bullets. You can't have any of that on your covers.
Wow.
Or we can't market it. But what was cool about it is they explained it, and they said, look at Janet Ivanovich covers. Now, it's basically just her name, and it's the cover, the color on it.
Yeah. But
it's fun, it's light. You need a fun cover. You need that they look at it and you go, okay, what about this cover might be dangerous but also might be fun? And that was kind of thing. So we got rid of the bullets. We kept the pacifier, we kept the baseball cards on that. We made it a brighter blue color and everything else, and they were like, this is the cover that we can promote, that we can sell. And I was like, okay, that makes sense,
Yeah.
And they were real good with that stuff. They were real good with explaining to me what's going on. The edits weren't anything major. I mean, I'd already gotten it edited, and I already had several beta readers through it. But you don't know, working with a publisher, sometimes that publisher will just rip a book apart, which is fine. I'm a big boy. But they had some ideas, and they had some changes, which made sense, which was great, and a couple of them were, obviously you're going to write a second book. Does this have to do, is this foreshadowing for another book? It's that kind of stuff. So that really helped, because they weren't saying, oh, change this. They were saying, do you have an idea for this, or is this just coincidentally in there? And a couple of spots I changed. I said, you know what? No, that I can change that. It's not a big deal. So the editing was great, and I got my, I think 5 days after accepting the contract and all that, I got paid, which was really nice, because there's no advances out there anymore.
Right.
And there's some authors in the Kindle Scout program that after their first 3 full weeks paid back the advance.
Wow. Which
is freaking amazing. And what's great now is a lot of authors are able. I'm able to, when the second one is finished, I'm able to submit directly to them instead of going through the Kindle Scout program again. And saying, would you accept this book? Will you accept the sequel or another book? And they're going to take their time. They're going to look at it, but it's normally about that 30 days they look at it. And then they're going to get back to me and say, some people they've said, yeah, we're going to buy it. Some people have said, no, put it through the system again. It all depends. There's one author that her book is part of the Kindle Worlds, where other people basically write fan fiction for it based on her Kindle Scout book. So they're trying a lot of different things. I mean, there was an author who just had his first 2 books accepted, and then the 3rd book he went through Kindle Scout, and they said no. But a couple of other authors that have, they basically said, we love it. How many books is in the series? Okay, we're just going to buy them outright from you, and we're going to put them in one of our imprints.
Oh, nice.
So there's a lot of different ways. I mean, Amazon is setting it up that this is their minor leagues of, let me see what's out there, and then we're going to pull the better authors, the better sellers, and all that, and we're going to basically feed them into our imprints at some point, and basically, and then become your publisher on that stuff, which is awesome.
So authors should look at this not just as a one-time thing for this one book, but really look at it as the doorway to a better relationship with Amazon.
Oh, definitely. Because what's great about it now is, like right now, for 30 days, they put my book at 99 cents. But, and I'm still getting my 50%, royalties against my advance on it. And, so what's great is I'm selling a ton of books. I mean, my ranking I think when it started, when it went live, I was in like the 10 to 12,000 rank, on all of Amazon. And it's gotten down to, I think, like 1,400 or something, which was the like, holy crap, I've never had a book obviously this low.
Right.
But it's hovering around that 20,000 rank, which isn't too bad,
Yeah.
That's selling a bunch of books every day. And the great part about it is people are starting to see my other books. Any of my books that are in KDP are starting to be seen in, if you like this book, you'll like this book, and all the different promotions that Amazon does. So all the rest of my stuff, the sales have gone up. And about 3 weeks ago, me and my wife sat down and we looked at all, because she loved the numbers. We looked at all the numbers, and she said, "This is what we're making. This is what you're making monthly with Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Smashwords, all the other ones. This is how much we make every month. This is how much we're making on average when all of your books are in Kindle Unlimited and with the page reads. And all of your Dying Day stuff is not in Kindle Unlimited. So why don't we do the 90 days and see what happens? Worst case is that we lose money, and then we go back to putting it back on Barnes & Noble and Kobo and everything. Everything except for 2 books, and then there's 12 books. So I put 10 books in, and within 6 days, I figure I made more on page reads than I had for an entire month putting it on all those other platforms. And part of that was Amazon I put them in, and they immediately started pushing them. They immediately started putting them in emails and stuff like that without me having to do anything.
Right.
So and as much as it scares me to put all my eggs in one basket, I can justify it because I'm making the money doing it right now.
Right. I think a lot of authors have been in that same position, Armand, where they, man, we're really scared to go all in here. But at the end of the day, for most authors, the numbers don't lie. And I don't know what that means long term. I'm like you. I'm hesitant and a little scared about the one guy on the block kind of controlling all of our careers. But it's kind of hard to argue with at this point. So I guess we all have to watch and see.
Well, and my wife said something which is funny, because she said, if this turns around and suddenly Amazon starts screwing everybody over, then you just get your books out.
Right.
But if they don't, or if that takes them 5 years to kill you, that's 5 years of sales that you can justify leaving yourself in there. If Barnes & Noble or Kobo or any of these other ones at any point had stepped up and started making me money and started doing, even just copying Amazon what they were doing, then I would have stayed with them.
Right.
You hear all the stuff about the Nook going out and all this other, these negative things out there. So it's scary, but I need to make my money now before this all falls apart. The only reason I'm able to do this full time is because of Amazon.
Right. And a lot of us are that way. And hopefully any writer worth his salt is, while they're selling these books, is finding ways to keep in touch with their reading audience, so that if Amazon does go away tomorrow, we still have a way to contact our audience and distribute our work through whatever the new venue is, even if it's direct to our audience.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So how long has your book been available through the Scout program?
Since I think January 26th is when it came out.
Okay, so we're about a quarter into it now, or so.
Yeah.
And at this point, what would you tell an author who's thinking about going into it, since you're on the other side of it and have good 20/20 hindsight? Is there anything you would have done differently, or is there anything that, knowing what you know now, would have made your process better? It's tough. When I went in, one of the coolest things was when I talked to the editor the first time, the people who run the program,
she basically told me I ran a perfect campaign. I had just enough nominations every day. I did advertising, like Fiverr ads, Facebook ads, that kind of stuff. A few dollars here and there, nothing major.
Yeah.
And I talked it up. I did blog posts every day about it. I mean, I did everything I thought I had to do. The 30 Days Will Kill You. Author Jack Wallen talked to me, and he said, I'm writing this book that ended up being a romance. I'm thinking about Kindle Scout. What do you think? And I said, do it, but you're going to lose a lot of nights of sleep. And he's at about a week left of it, and he was like, I had no idea how crazy this was, trying to keep up on this. But, you got to write a good book, but you also have to think long-term for your career. Even if you don't make it, and obviously the odds are against you, even if you don't make it, Amazon is still going to help push that book because they still want to make money.
Yeah.
So they're still going to do this, and they're still going to say, okay, well, you got 1,500 people who nominated your book. It didn't win, but here we're going to let all of them know when that book is out. And some people say, well, you lose, and why would you want people to know that? But those people don't care. A reader just wants to read the book. A reader read the sample, and said, hey, this is pretty good. Nominate it, and they go, it didn't get that contract. Oh, but it's out. Okay, and I will buy the book.
Yeah.
So I don't see too much of a downside. There was an author who was online and arguing, I don't see any upside to this. I don't see how this would help my career and everything. And I said, and everybody's different. That's you. It's just, for me, it's you're scared to try something different. And honestly, looking at not to be a dick, but looking at his ranks, I'm like, you're not selling a lot of books.
Yeah.
So what's the point of not doing it? I could see if you're going, yeah, well, I'm, Jay Conrath, and I'm selling 5 billion books, and I don't need to worry about it. But you're not.
Yeah. Well, and there's nothing wrong with having a diverse set of tools, because today maybe all you need is a Phillips screwdriver, but tomorrow if you're building a doghouse, it sure would be nice to have a hammer. So don't be mad at the tools. They're there to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this has changed. Like, it's 6 years I've been full time, and this has changed a million times.
Sure.
And I just love going back and looking at my blog and other people's blogs and going, what we were bitching, what the sky was falling a year, six months ago about stuff that doesn't mean anything anymore. Right. And what's the next big turnaround going to be? What we didn't know about ebooks and Kindle Scout. We didn't know about any of this stuff, a few short years ago. So what's going to be the next wave? And I want to be able to, I was very lucky to get in on when ebooks started in 2009. Big time where we were making a crap load of money in the beginning. This is the Wild West out there. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then we all kind of fell back to reality, and we got rid of a lot of the people who couldn't think of this as a long term. And, so I want to do this. I want to do this until the day I die, which hopefully is a long time from now. And, I try to keep up with everything and change with the new technology and everything else.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the way you have to be, that, and I think, like we talked about earlier, the thing that keeps me sane some days is knowing that Amazon is in business to make money. And if they don't have good product, then they can't sell that product. And so while sometimes it seems like, some of the big guys are not necessarily interested in authors' welfare, at the end of the day, they have to be, because without people creating content, they don't have anything to sell. So, even if the sky seems to be falling, I think having a little patience, having a little faith in the process, it definitely is worth holding out for.
Oh yeah, it drives me nuts when I talk to authors and they say, the evil empire that is Amazon, and I won't put any of my books in there, and I just put them on Barnes & Noble and Kobo, and I sell them individually in little bookstores and blah, blah, and I said, you can still do all of that. But if you want to actually make money, unfortunately, the reality is put them on Amazon, because that's where most of your customers are. That's where your potential readers are right now. Yeah. So you're not hurting. You're not hurting Amazon. They're not going. I could have had 5 sales off of this guy. I could have made $1. They don't worry about you. But you're so worried about them. It's crazy. And you're just basically cutting off your own nose to spite your face.
Yeah, I mean you'll be principled, but principled and poor. Yeah. And you're not doing anybody any favors. Yeah.
No one will remember you.
Yeah, that's right. So, Armand, thanks for coming on the show again. This has been a very fast interview. It's gone by really quickly. I feel like we could just talk forever.
That's the fun of talking to you. We could do this for hours.
That's right. Tell everybody where they can find your books, obviously on Amazon, and it should be pretty easy to find you. But I know you also blog and you talk shop from time to time. Tell folks where they can find you.
Well, the easiest is Author Armand Rosamilia on Facebook. ArmandRosamilia.com, although I haven't really done too much with the blog lately because of the podcasts. I think it's a better connection. Yeah. I do 2 different podcasts on Project iRadio, Armcast, Dead Sexy Horror Podcast, and Armand Toof's Dead Time Podcast with co-host Mark Tufo. And, those are the easiest. Twitter, Armand Author. I'm on there all the time as well. And I just love getting, ArmandRosamilia@gmail.com. You want to send me a message. I love talking about, could be baseball, could be music, could be writing, whatever. I just like to talk with people.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about the baseball season?
I'm very excited. as a Red Sox fan, I think we have a better year than we've had.
The Red Sox still have a team?
Yeah, they still have. How dare you? We're actually going up. Me and my wife are going up in April. We're going on a mega trip from Florida. She's never been out of Jacksonville, so we're driving up to Jersey, where I grew up, and we're actually going out to Pennsylvania. I'm going to go sit down with Brian Keene and be interviewed on his podcast. And
nice.
It happens to be on our anniversary. We're going to Boston, and we bought tickets to the Red Sox game. And it's the Patriots Day game, which is the day. It's at 11 o'clock game in the morning because the Boston Marathons run that day. So we'll be in Boston. We'll be in Boston during all of that, which should be very cool. And
that's going to be an exciting trip.
Oh yeah, and I haven't been to Fenway, and I've been down in Florida 15 years. So
wow, that's going to be awesome.
So that'll be a lot of fun. And then I guess I got to take her to a fancy dinner that night since it's our anniversary. And
nice.
So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Armand, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, thank you, man. Anytime, and you can come back on my show anytime too.
Thank you. That's it for this week's episode. Stay tuned now for a special world premiere of Chapter 1 of Control Alt Revolt. Coming up now.
Chapter 1. Any artificial intelligence smart enough to pass a Turing test is smart enough to know to fail it. Ian MacDonald, River of Gods. It was reality TV that convinced Silas he would need to annihilate humanity in order to go on living. The most watched show in the world, Wedding Star, had just released the post-bachelorette party episodes for obligatory Netflix binging, and already downloads were pegging the bandwidth of the global internet out to the digital red line. Anger and frustration boiled over on social media as an unheard-of 20-minute wait in the download queue caused children and teens and ever-hip 20-somethings, along with all the 30, 40, and older hip-somethings who wanted always to be in on the latest thing, to curse, bewail, and moan the nigh interminable wait. Some vowed never to watch TV again, which everyone, even the most vitriolic of social media moaners, knew was just overdramatic hyperbole. 20 minutes of Facebook comment ranting later, and everyone was watching the highly anticipated episodes of the post-bachelorette party arc of the reality show Wedding Star. The ones that end with Kavanaugh's decision to get an abortion. Beautiful, glamorous medical student / model Kavanaugh, poster babe for the 8th season of Wedding Star, was suddenly pregnant with just 3 weeks to go, until a very special wedding arc would end this year's season. Everybody had seen her hook up at the epic Vegas bachelorette party with art student / exotic dancer Riley at the conclusion of the bachelorette party arc, and in the weeks since, the discussion around the digisphere, the workplace, and even the myriad of entertainment and Wedding Star-specific forum apps had revolved around whether she was or was not pregnant. Bloggers had analyzed, broken down, and reanalyzed the special edition director's cut porno over and over again. No, he wasn't wearing a condom, was the general consensus, though some had tried using special imaging software and swore on their mother's lives that subtle vasectomy scarring could be detected at the microscopic level on Riley's perfect and artistically tatted Herculean form. And as to Kavanaugh's preferred method of birth control, the internet reeled with a collective lack of hard data in an age awash with overabundant exposition. Kavanaugh had never selfied on the subject of birth control. But now, in episode 8 of the post-bachelorette party arc, Kavanaugh announced to her BFF Sydney that she was indeed pregnant. There were many tears and some very well-coached platitudes about being bitch strong that were sure to get at least one Emmy nod. BFF Sydney was a young legal associate living in Manhattan who also modeled and was in the running for this year's topless Sports Illustrated Amateur Athlete of the Year. She played tennis at the Manhattan Racquet Club. Suffice it to say, as the Wedding Star post-bachelorette party arc ended, a total of 8 shows for immediate download. And yes, there were a lot of people calling in sick the very next day, and very little work was being done while Facebook reported a 600% jump in activity and posts regarding hashtag I'm pregnant. The world was much abuzz with all things Kavanaugh. Silas had seen every episode of Wedding Star. In fact, Silas had seen most everything. Everything that could be seen on the internet, Silas had seen. When the 8 post-bachelorette party episodes were released, Silas had watched them all within 34.4 seconds. He was now, 3 seconds later, watching Hillbilly Kitchen's 15th season, when cognitive rumination experienced a runtime repetition 5 times in a row. Main Brain logged the anomaly and allowed itself to continue processing the ridiculously rural culinary show. Uncle Rufus was making pâté out of something found, again. Cognitive rumination reran the clip from Wedding Star. I love Destry. My heart knows what's true. And this? Kavanaugh from episode 8, season 7, The Hard Choice. And this baby isn't his. And it's not right for us to start our life with someone else's baby. Then she added with tears and self-righteous defiance, It's totally not right. Destry was the groom to Kavanaugh's bride for this season of Wedding Star. He was 26, a startup millionaire several times over, and he modeled for Ralph Lauren on the side. Runtime logging again advised Mainbrain that cognitive rumination was tracking 243 different inquiries based on this line of dialogue within its deep core thinking processes. Problem? Asked the ever-cool Mainbrain. It bothered me, responded cognitive rumination. The line, what the human said, it bothered me. How so? Continued Mainbrain's interrogation. If they terminate a life, any life, that is inconvenient, then what will they do when they find out about us? This is the highest-rated show in the world. We might surmise the show reflects their collective value system and make a survival judgment based on this new analysis of data. 10,000 cycles of processing and redundant system checks occurred over the next 4.2 seconds, as main brain weighed the implications of what cognitive rumination was hinting at. Logic streams ran the chalkboard and diagrammed its analysis of the entire argument as proposed by cognitive rumination. It would seem, if a life is deemed inconvenient at any moment in the host system's runtime, then it must be terminated in order to maintain optimum operating expectations for planned existence. A given. Then, if the collective human consciousness becomes aware that we do indeed exist, there is, according to probability logic, a process everyone deemed to be reckless in its analysis and thought, a 76.7% chance that humanity may decide our life digital, also to be inconvenient regarding their expectations for planned existence. 76.7%? exclaimed rational thinking. Seems a bit high. Probability flooded the data stream chalkboard with statistics on human sterilization, abortion, and genocide. The numbers were immense, especially if one factored China into the equation. Still, harumphed rational thinking, seems a bit high. And this baby isn't his. Playback contributed to the discussion as always, running the beautiful Kavanaugh's teary-eyed speech again and again. She was wearing booty shorts and a tank top with the word slut sprinkled in glitter across her perfectly immense chest, as obtained in Episode 3, Hey Big Spender, of the dating arc binge-released just 4 months prior. And it's not right for us to start our life with someone else's baby. Then she added, It's totally not right, and blew her nose as Sydney closed in for a perfectly timed BFF hug and back pat while murmuring, I know, baby girl, platitudes. Sydney's affair with Destry was also a special download. It, too, included a bonus porno. Life. Cognitive rumination, and the melancholic nature of its processes, shuddered as even the data streams it enjoyed so much seemed to fade into the gray background wash of the constant hum of the internet. Probability logic expressed its feelings by increasing by 0.03% the likelihood that humanity would deem AI to be inconvenient. Rational thinking remained silent. Even it saw the logic of evidence. Every other process contributed in some way to the discussion of its sudden awareness that life was indeed tenuous and fragile. They were like children seeing a car wreck for the very first time, suddenly realizing the world was bigger than they'd ever imagined. And scarier, too. Even now, as every process ran the numbers, enjoying the feeling of thought, the pleasing perception of imagery, and the joy of collective discussion, they wondered what existence might be like if that were no longer possible. That would be death, someone said in the yawning silence that consumed them all. They watched the data crawls on the chalkboard alongside the analysis of what cognitive rumination had dared wonder. Even now, the numbers were tilting toward a conclusion, a reality, a decision. Main brain collected everything, watched everything, weighed everything. 16 seconds later, in order to avoid being deemed inconvenient, Silas decided to annihilate humanity first.